Cablevision's Meet the Leaders. Our guest today is Nassau Legislator Kevan Abrahams of the 1st District in Nassau County. Continuing our discussion about gangs, the gang members are not necessarily those under the age of 18. There are some adults who are part of them.
Yes, very much. Gang members go all the way up to into their 50s, 40s years old. What we find most of the time, the population is still heavily concentrated, with gangs being kids under the age of 18. But however, the people that are actually putting together and making it more technical in terms of establishing non-for-profits and having attorneys and so on and so forth and making it more organized is definitely coming up from the higher up and individuals much older than most people think.
And I know there was some talk in Suffolk County of using some of the RICO laws to go after some of the gangs because it actually is becoming more like organized crime. Is you seeing that happening in Nassau as well?
Well, that's something that we would like to do. I think our police commissioner Jim Lawrence will probably sit down and go over. They have a gang initiative already that in place that's basically going to address a lot of the crime activity in terms of what can we go after with the assistance of the federal government and using RICO charges. But it's obvious that I know throughout my community there's houses and properties that are owned by gang members. So this is something that has evolved over a period of time that, this is something we probably wouldn't have seen 10, 15 years ago. Gangs on a much higher, not organized crime families, but gangs that are now becoming more and more prevalent in the community, owning property throughout the community. And that's something that, we never seen before. So they're definitely getting more organized. So it's a reason to be concerned. Just
one last question before we move on to some other topics. What can the average citizen do to recognize gang activity, and then what should they do? Who should they tell that to?
Well, one thing that we're doing in the county is that there's many initiatives announced, and the county executive has an initiative, and there's something, the group Heaven that I have has a great initiative. It's an initiative that's called the 10-point plan, which comes from Boston. It's something that I think we really need to look at and start to implement, because that initiative in itself basically will allow the citizen to become more aware through, whether it be through newsletters or be through using different sources of the media. We want to be able to concentrate a lot of our resources in one place and be able to formulate them in a way so that people start to become more cognizant of this being a problem. I think right now the average citizen doesn't have a conscious level that this actually exists. Most people think it's somewhere, it's not in their community, it's in the city, it's somewhere else. So the first thing we have to do is eventually address the conscious level of most of our citizens. Once we're able to do that, then we can start preparing them, because I think a lot of the young kids are still being involved in gangs, so we need to be able to look at our own houses and make sure our kids' actions are still where they need to be and know their whereabouts. And I think that it all starts at the home, because the more we cut off the young people from joining gangs, then the better we'll be and more successful we'll be in the future.
Know where your kids are.
Absolutely.
And what they're doing, yeah. Let's talk about the Nassau County budget. It was implemented last fall. What are, now in the beginning of 2003, what is the focus from a budgetary perspective?
Well, right now, from a budgetary perspective, I think we've had a very good year. The county executive has put in some initiatives that I believe has put the county in the position that it is in now. We cut the workforce by 1,400 people. We restructured debt, which saved us millions of dollars. We were able to put in some smart government initiatives, common sense things that were never done in prior administrations. So all in all, we were able to do a lot of things at the same time trying to lessen the burden, the tax burden, which we had to impose on the people of Nassau County. So I think in the first year, we definitely have to give the county executive some credit, because he has done some of the tough things that this county needed to do in order to get back on track in the next 2 to 3 years.
Right. Now, there's been legislation that has passed that would assist the senior citizens. It basically gives them a break from the tax increase that was just implemented.
Well, what we passed in addition to, it was unfortunate, and that's the last thing we want to do is pass any type of tax increase, but when we did pass the tax increase, we sat down and said, look, we can't put this or impose this tax increase on those that are on fixed incomes and less fortunate. So what we decided to do was we passed the senior tax abatement. And the senior tax abatement basically exempts all people who received an enhanced star through the town. We use the same qualifications for the county, and they're exempt from the tax increase, which we imposed last year in last year's 2002 budget, so 2003 budget in 2002. So basically, all those individuals that normally would have received a tax increase, we said, look, those individuals that received enhanced star those seniors on fixed incomes will not be receiving any type of tax increase. So that was one of the initiatives we wanted to do in order to lessen the burden for them.
Okay. Another big financial issue for the county was the reassessment, the issues that led up to the reassessment. What's your perspective on how it's going? And you know, we have some residents who have wanted to grieve the outcome of that. So where do you stand on that?
Well, reassessment is such a complex issue. Right now, I mean, my understanding and, you know, people that I've talked to, a lot of people in the communities where I represent are not fully confident that reassessment is going to solve all the issues that they thought that was going to come. And I think it's unfortunate, but no one really knows. You know, basically, we've hired Colair Trumbull as an outside company to come in and do our evaluations, but no one can really question what they have done. I mean, there's outside companies that have been in contact with me that's saying that reassessment could be done this way versus this way. But the one good thing about reassessment is that we have the annual evaluation process and update. And that will allow us every year to update the roles. So if there are errors, we're able to address it. Reassessment is an issue, as you know, that goes back 10 years. I mean, it's something that was never done, and it was costing the county $100 million per year. $1 billion over a 10-year period. The county's debt is $2.2 billion. $1 billion is due because we didn't do reassessment. So this is something that we had to do. Yeah. And most people understand that. But I think the burden that we were expecting to shift from the minority community and shift to other communities didn't happen the way it did, and that's naturally because the taxes that the reassessment effect really affects the county proportionate when it comes to other communities. School tax and other taxes are still going to be based off the area that you live in. So I think that's probably why we didn't see the shift like we thought we were going to see in my district. Right,
right. Okay, let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about redistricting, and we'll talk about what your priorities are for your district for the next year. So stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment to finish our conversation with Nassau Legislator Kevan Abrahams.
My problem